knows there's a place for us where we could go, where we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. Sorry, it took me a second there to figure out my stream deck. Oh, I'm so happy to be here with you. And I'm happy that you're here with me, especially because it is, for some people, it's Easter. For a lot of people around the world, it's Easter. And we probably having a good time with your family, or maybe you're hanging out with me to avoid your family. I know I'm down here with you avoiding my family. No, I love my family. I'm just not... and so I'm glad to be with you this Sunday afternoon. Ghost Branch FPV. Yeah, nice parking, huh? Couldn't believe it. That is literally... I confess that I walked up to it. I looked at where the quad was and went, I cannot believe this happened. I took the quad down, pulled the GoPro out, and put it exactly back how it was so I could GoPro it real quick. So I cheated a little bit of a reality show manipulation there, but it really did crash right there. So there you go. I have to acknowledge last week when I was a little sniffly and I said it's just allergies, spring is here. Well, I was wrong. I had a cold all this week. And I am almost better from my cold. You can probably hear a little bit of congestion, and there may be some sniffling. There won't be any. Hopefully, I'm a little congested, but I'm not runny. So I just want to acknowledge that straight off, because sometimes people get super annoyed at that. There you go. I am drinking my. It's just tea. It's tea. Okay, it's tea with a little bit of bourbon in it. Just a little bit of bourbon, just to make the afternoon. It's Easter, right? Jesus would want me to drink bourbon in the afternoon, wouldn't he? I don't know. Let's not go there. Welcome to the live stream, you guys. I'm so happy that you're here. And we're going to do some Q&A. We're going to do some Q&A, questions and answers. How's my purple looking? Is my purple the right shade of purple? I think it is. I just think it's the white balance of my camera is a little bit blue. My purple is a little more, well, anyway. Whatever. We're looking good. We're looking good. I got my 533 shirt on, supporting Evan Turner. It's a very nice shirt. It's very nice company. Okay, welcome back. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. In case you're new here, is this your first live stream? First of all, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here, especially if it's your first live stream. I will do my best to be entertaining and useful. This is my main screen. Here is me. I will be checking out your questions and comments here on my main screen. And I will also be checking out these comments down over here on the right side of the screen. This is my Discord server over here, and these are my patrons. Patrons support me for subscribe to me for as little as $2 a month or more if they feel like I've earned it. They pick the amount, and as one of the rewards is they get to, well, they just get to feel good, but also they get to be over here on my Discord server, and they're on the other side of my screen. I'll be watching out for messages from my patrons. And if you want to, now I always take a ton of messages from the YouTube chat, but if you want to make sure that I get your message, the sure thing to do is to hit the $ right down here, leave a super chat, and it'll get pulled out. No one has left. There's still a chance for you to be the first super chat. Huh. Does audio sound okay? I just got a warning here. I think it's a leftover warning from... I don't think it's a real warning. I think the audio sounds fine. Tell me in the chat if the audio sounds fine. I think it does, though. So there's still a chance for you to be the first super chat, and I will be reading those in just a little bit. But I always like to start the stream off with some questions from the regular chat. Some call it the plebs. I don't call it that. Some call it that. And the topic I want to start with today is this. We're going to start with a topic from Facebook today that I was going to make a video about this, but then I thought, you know, I should just address it in the live stream, and then maybe I'll make a little excerpt and post it to my channel. Have you seen this going around? I see stuff like this on the internet, and I have opinions about it. But then every so often I've been just seeing a ton of emails and messages from you guys about this topic. It is really, how many comments? There are 115 comments on this topic, and I'm getting messages from people about it, and I thought I need to address this because obviously nothing in FPV means anything until I weigh in, clearly, right? That's sarcasm. That's sarcasm. Nobody out there needs to be like, God, Bardwell's so full of himself. I am, but I'm also self-aware enough to not, to call it out. Warren Jackson, I'm just getting into FPV and I purchased the DJI V2 goggles. I haven't gotten my drone yet. How worried do I have to be about getting a drone that's not compatible? Warren Jackson, any quad with a DJI Air unit or Vista is going to be compatible, so you'll be fine. Okay, so let's talk about this. And this comes from the Race Day Quads. I mean, it happens to be from Race Day Quads. It's the new Apex frame. Apex, hello, search results, autocomplete, no, can't have it. The new Apex DC, I believe, is the frame. And it says, a major drawback of the Caddx Vista system is that the body of the unit is grounded. This can cause the conductive carbon fiber plates and frame hardware to be grounded too. In an ideal world, this is not a problem, but in the real world, it's an accident waiting to happen. Alongside the required M2 mounting hardware for the Vista, Impulse RC includes a die-cut Mylar insulator and custom-machined cone rivets from non-conductive POM. And this electrically isolates the Caddx Vista from the frame. And there's a big discussion going on over whether this is BS and this is just a frame manufacturer making up fear-mongering, or whether this is actually addressing a legitimate problem. And I'm happy to tell you that both sides are right. Or both sides are wrong. But that would just sound like throwing shade, and I don't feel like going there. So here's why it's BS. Okay? I'm going to start out by telling you why it's BS, but I want you to know that then I'm going to tell you why it's actually sometimes not BS. Okay? And then you can decide whether I'm just trying to have it both ways. The first reason it's BS is that the frame of the Vista, the outer plates of the Vista, I haven't checked this, but the outer plates of the Vista are not actually grounded. They're not grounded. You can test this with a multimeter. I haven't verified this. Other people have said this, and I have no reason to disbelieve them. What's actually grounded is the mounting screw, the mounting holes. So the actual case of the Vista, if that's true, which we can verify with a multimeter, but I'm not going to do that right here on the live stream. If that's true, then the outer heatsink of the Vista touching your carbon fiber is not grounding, is not causing there to be a ground between the Vista and the frame. Why would that be bad? We'll get there. The other reason that that might not be true is that carbon fiber sheet has an enamel, has a coating, a resin coating. If you try to take your multimeter and test for conductivity, conductivity between the surface of carbon fiber, you won't have it. But if you take like a screwdriver tip and you scrape away some of that resin coating, now the conductive carbon fiber is conductive, but the actual resin coating that is on the flat surface is not conductive. And so until there is some abrasion, the carbon fiber will not be conductive. Now, some people have experienced mounting their ESCs to the arms of their frame, and they don't use any like tape or anything to isolate it. And it's fine for a long time until eventually the normal vibration that a quadcopter is subject to rubs away enough of that resin coating to get to the sweet carbon fiber inside, and then you get a short circuit and your ESC blows. Okay. So there are a couple things about this we could nitpick, but that's missing the heart of the matter. The heart of the matter is it bad to have a connection between a grounded electronic device and your frame? Because this issue is much wider than the Caddx Vista. For example, do you remember back when we used to mount SMA antennas through a hole in the top plate? And we would just literally screw the SMA connector to the top plate. There were various reasons that was bad, mostly involving the durability of the antenna mounting. TPU mounting is flexible enough that the antenna can take a hit and not break as quickly. But when we were doing that, that SMA connector is grounded, and it was grounding the frame. If you have a camera, an analog camera with a metal case, that metal case is probably grounded. And when you put those metal screws through the carbon fiber camera plate into the metal case, the frame will get ground from there. Some, but not all, ESCs. Some, but not all, flight controllers. The mounting holes are connected to ground, and the frame will get ground through that location. So there are many ways that a frame could get ground. And that leads us to the question, is that a bad thing? Now, if you look at any piece of consumer hardware, consumer electronics, a television, a washer, a dryer, a PC case, a computer PC case, any piece of electronics with a metal case, the case will be grounded. And that's for safety reasons. They ground the case because they don't want, if imagine if in your electric clothes dryer, imagine if the 120 volt or 240 volt, if you're in Europe, if that wire got loose somehow and touched the actual metal case, I call it a case, the metal, whatever, shell outside of the dryer. Now that's energized, and you come along, la-di-da-di-da, with your laundry, and you touch it, and now you get a shock because you are now the path to ground. We have an energized thing with no path to ground. So what they do is they ground the case, and if the electric wire touches the case, there is a path to ground, current flows, it trips the circuit breaker, and then everything is great. So it is completely normal and expected in electronics that a case would have ground, that the mounting holes of a piece of electronics would be grounded. That is all completely normal. But is there a problem here? Is there a problem here that we're trying to solve? Okay, now we go to sort of part 2 of this rant. Why is it bad for the frame of a quadcopter to be grounded? The main reason it's bad is that if you get into a situation, just like with that electric clothes dryer, if you have a positive voltage, well, we don't have 120 or 240 volt mains on a quadcopter. We have a VBAT. We have battery voltage, 6S, whatever, coming from your LiPo. And if that positive, imagine that the XT60 wire is going across a piece of carbon fiber, and the sharp edge of the carbon fiber cuts through the insulation of the wire, okay? And now the frame, the carbon fiber frame, is energized. Well, there's no circuit breaker like there is in your house. When that frame becomes energized, electricity will flow through the carbon fiber, find any path to ground. Electricity takes all potential paths to ground, and it will cause problems. Anything with current flowing through it, certainly the frame will be damaged, and anything else. If your flight controller has grounded mounting screws, when that XT60 wire gets cut and feeds VBAT through the frame, that current will flow into the mounting screws of the flight controller, and then from there through the ground wire of the flight controller, and potentially that will be excess current flow and things will get burned out. And that's bad, obviously. 661FPV, I am aware there's a difference between neutral and ground in house electronics. For the sake of this discussion, that difference is moot. But I do understand there's a difference. So here is the point that the Apex DC is trying to make. The point that they're trying to make is, if your frame is not grounded, then if you get into a situation where there is a stray battery wire that gets cut, or somehow your capacitor, you have a capacitor with it's connected to VBAT, and the capacitor leg breaks, and now there's a stray wire dangling around in your quadcopter, and it's got VBAT on it, and somehow it touches the frame, and now, whoa, we got a path to ground, boys! Let's fry some stuff! But if the frame is not grounded, then when that happens, nothing happens. The frame is energized. It is at a voltage potential of 25 volts or whatever your battery voltage is. But since there is nowhere for that potential to go, there's nowhere for that current to go, nothing bad happens. A valid argument. Valid argument. Now here, so that's the sort of valid argument. But the wording over here is, a major drawback of the Cadex Vista system is that the body of the unit is grounded. That's not a major drawback of the Cadex system. It's completely normal in electronics for the frame, the case, the mounting holes. It's completely normal for them to be grounded. And in some circumstances, it's actually a safety precaution, although in the case of the Cadex Vista, it probably isn't. It's completely normal. It's not a drawback of the Vista system. It is a fact that if you have a grounded frame, it means you have an additional failure mode that wouldn't otherwise have existed. But here's the analogy I like to make. If you go to the doctor and you say, Doc, man, My knee really hurts. Whenever I do squats, my knee hurts. And the doc says, yeah, your knee is messed up. You got a torn ligament. You say, no, it only hurts when I do squats. I think I'm just not going to do any squats. The doc's like, well, you got a torn ligament. You really need to fix that. Nah, it's okay. See, the argument is that if you have some stray wire that is putting battery voltage on your frame, that's the torn ligament, then if there's no path to ground, well, I guess everything's okay. No, everything's not okay. You've a disaster waiting to happen. The fact that the disaster hasn't happened yet because you've avoided grounding out your frame, someday, who knows? You got to fix that problem. So, if you prefer to prevent your frame from being grounded, more power to you. There are many sources of ground, though. You're going to be using nylon screws to mount your ESC on your flight controller, potentially, which is going to compromise durability. You're going to be using 3D prints to mount your SMA antenna connector and your camera, which, not the end of the world. There's many ways that you're going to need to work around this. More power to you. But to claim that this is some drawback of the Vista, it's not unique to the Vista. And you really should just be building your quadcopter so you don't have a stray VBAT wire putting VBAT on your frame. Your frame doesn't need to be energized. Okay. That's my take on that. Now, there's a couple more little things to say, and then we're going to read some super chats and take some. I haven't been reading the comments. I know that's annoying when the streamer doesn't read the comments. I've been kind of just trying to get this out in an organized way. The other way that this problem can happen is with your motor screws. Your motor screws are too long. Your motor screw cuts into the motor wire or touches the windings. And then when the ESC drives the motor, VBAT is energizing the motor screw. And since the motor screw is touching the cut edge of the carbon, then the frame becomes energized. At that point, if there is any path to ground through the frame, you'll get hot carbon in the arms, your motor screws will get super hot, and you'll have problems. The quad won't fly right. Your motors will get super hot. Things will be bad. But if the frame somehow wasn't grounded, you could get away with that. There was a person who said, as soon as I put screws in my Vista, my motor screws got hot. So see, they're right. And I'm like, no, your motor screws are touching your motor wires. That's bad for many other reasons. The fact that you can get away with it by not grounding out your Vista doesn't mean you don't have a problem. The other thing is, there is an argument to be made that when the frame is grounded, it becomes, it has an effect on the RF signal of the antenna, on the VTX antenna, in a way that it doesn't when it's not grounded. And there's some validity to that, although it's a little hard to characterize, but I do want to acknowledge it. And that is my take on that. In short, it's BS because it's not unique to the Vista. And if you build your quad correctly, it doesn't matter if the frame is grounded. You don't need to think about it. But it's not BS because in some situations, it does create a problem. And the real advantage of this is that when you screw up, and you accidentally energize your frame, anything with a path to ground is going to get fried, potentially. So by not grounding your Vista, you potentially protect your Vista from getting fried on the day when you screw up and accidentally cut your VBAT wire or something. And so by not grounding those things, you potentially protect them from getting fried and save yourself money. Okay. Okay. If you don't think about it, though, you're not wrong. And if you do think about it, you're also not wrong. But personally, I just mount my Vista with double-sided sticky tape and zip ties. The zip ties through the mounting holes. And that it happens to electrically isolate it, but is also just my preferred way of mounting it. Okay. What do you think? Did I get that right? It's always risky to talk about the apex frame because people will think you're throwing shade at steel, and then people come out and get defensive. So I hope I did a good job with that. Let's take some questions from the chat, just because I haven't answered a single free question, and then we'll do some super chats. Let me just scroll back. Let me just scroll back here and look for some questions in the super chat. Let's see here. I got a question here from Marcine Samocha asking, I have 2 drones, both Crossfire Nano Tyrannus QX7 with Micro TX 250M, 300 meters, and the Tyrannus is yelling RSI critical. Should I check the Tyrannus antenna? It could just, what I would do is I would not let the Tyrannus do my RSSI warning. I would put LQ and RSSI DBM in the OSD, and I would let Crossfire manage that. My guess is that your Tyrannus RSSI warning is just not set right. That's my guess. The LQ is really the thing that you care most about, although, you know, you could RSSI is mostly useful, in my opinion, for telling you when you have bad hardware. Like you take you take a receiver and a module that you think are working well, and you look at the RSSI DBM with it like 1 meter away. You set your radio to 100 milliwatts, and you put your quad one meter away or something, and you just create a reproducible scenario, and you look at your RSSI DBM. So I just did this with Immersion RC Ghost, so I have numbers in my head, and it was at something like minus 20 dBm. I don't know. And I go, okay. So now if I suspect that I have a bad receiver or a bad antenna, I run that test again. And if I see, minus 60 dBm, I know I'm way off and something isn't right. But then while flying, I mostly focus on the LQ, not on the RSSI. I think the Tyrannus warning is just messed up, is my guess. Okay, there we go. We got a question. It is tea. It is iced tea. It's iced tea with a little bit of bourbon. GV Pilot has a valid point. It is absolutely valid to say that having excessive paths to ground, especially for your video transmitter, could create opportunities for electrical noise to mess up your video. I could imagine a scenario where having your SMA connector touching the carbon fiber frame creates video noise, and isolating it gets rid of video noise. That is valid. It isn't always the case, but it is valid. Rusty PFPV wants to know, will a capacitor on the flight controller clean up my analog picture? Yes, probably. I mean, you want to start with a capacitor on your ESC. Okay, let's do some super chats. People paid for me to read their questions, and the least I could do is get to that in a semi-timely manner. We're going to start with this super chat from Laws FPV. Thank you for $2 super chat. What BL Heli 32 settings for the Tiny Trainer work the best? The first thing I would do is I would look to see if Evan Turner has published anything. The second thing I would do is I would go to Chris Rosser's video, and I would look up what he says the best settings are. Now, is he testing the 2004 motors in this one? I believe he tested 2004 motors, which is not exactly what the Tiny Trainer uses, but they're at least not 5-inch motors. He has right here the best settings for both, and has a summary slide. And I would just start there. Hello, where's my summary slide? There we go. So I would start here. And I would work from there. I don't have specific recommendations for the tiny trainer. Mupshot, 8 ounces of bourbon would be pretty extreme. This isn't going to be that kind of live stream. Coelho FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. Are there any drones attached auto-inflated flotation devices for crash recovery in water? Coelho, I remember hearing about such a thing. It was like a CO2 canister that inflated a balloon on the presence of water. I could not. I looked for it recently and could not find it. I don't know if it ever became a commercial product or whether it was just like somebody's idea. Everybody I know who flies over water just uses empty water bottles or foam pool noodles for flotation. That's what they do. So that's the answer I have to give. Justin Rice, thanks for a $2 super chat. Saying thank you. Savas Ioannides, thank you for a €5 super chat. The new iFlight Evoke F5 with the new Bosch gyro comes with bidirectional D-shut turned off. Is there any reason they turned RPM filtering off? Savas, I noticed that too. I don't remember if it was on the old Evoke F5, but it had bidirectional turned off. I don't know why they did that. I agree. That's weird. There's nothing about the Bosch gyro that would prevent it from working. And almost always RPM filtering makes quads fly better, especially on Betaflight 4.2. On Betaflight 4.3, there have been some changes to the dynamic filter. That means that if you're using the dynamic filter, then I still think RPM filtering is a better way to go, but you can get better performance on 4.3 than 4.2 with bidirectional turned off. I don't know why they did that. The upside, though, is on my Evoke F5, it flew really well on the factory tune. The 5-inch did. So, like, I didn't criticize them too hard because, like, I don't know, but the result speaks for itself. But I would turn it on any quad, so. John Coop, the issue, John Coop says, we're going back to the question about about grounding frames. John Coop says, by not allowing the Vista to touch the frame won't protect it. If VBAT hits the frame, the Vista is still connected to ground through the ground wire. Yeah, but it's about current flow, John. What is going to hurt a piece of electronics is when positive voltage potential hits the frame and the current needs a path to ground. And that path to ground goes, for example, through the frame, up through the mounting screw of your flight controller, into the flight controller's ground plane, through the mounting hole, and then out the ground wire of the flight controller. And that's more current than that's all designed to handle, and it fries your flight controller. Being connected to ground won't hurt you because you are not in the path of the current flow unless you are connected to ground. Unless you are, but you have to be between. So if you're connected to the frame and you're connected to ground, then there could be current flow, which would damage you. I think what you're saying, John, is that if the Vista is connected to ground through the ground wire and to the frame through the screws, then there won't be a potential difference across the Vista, which would cause it to be damaged. But practically speaking, we know that's not true. We absolutely see cases. Like the most common thing I've seen is VTX is getting fried. That the VTX gets fried when current comes through the frame into the SMA connector of the VTX, down the coaxial cable into the VTX, and then it just fries the RF amplifier. And you could say, yeah, but the VTX is also connected to ground through the ground wire. And the point is that due to differing resistances, there is enough of a potential difference across it to create enough current to damage it. I mean, objectively speaking, we have seen this happen. Okay. Let's go back and get those super chats. There is a rest tube. Alpha Sloth, thank you. Always, the super chat will, or the YouTube chat will always help you. Rest tube, swim safety buoy. Now, this is not made specifically for drones, I think, but is it? No. This is not specifically made for drones, and it looks like you have to pull a wire. It doesn't automatically trigger when you hit the water. So this is similar to what we're talking about, but not the same. Maybe this... Oh, we're getting somewhere. Fishing drone. So here is a fishing drone. I don't know what the hell that is. This is the... I can't decide if I've never seen this before in my life, and I can't decide... Oh my god, it's $1,500. I can't decide if this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen or the coolest. A fishing drone. Hang on. I need them to send me one of these to test. Would you guys like to see me go out on a boat with this fucking... Sorry, apologize for swearing. With this drone. I can't decide if this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen or the coolest. Anyway, let's move on. It seems like there may be a CO2 inflated rescue. Auto-inflate life jacket canister. This is just the CO2, though. Drifts on CO2 automatically inflating life vest. Oh, here we go. This is getting there. So this is a life jacket. It's not specifically for drones, but it is moving the right direction. Is fishing by drone illegal? Oh, well, that would be too bad. I would kill the video. Decodester, thank you for a $10 super chat. Have you seen the drone and operator tracking software and nodes installed in cities? As a Wi-Fi and signal guy, what are your thoughts? So Decodester, I'm aware of some drone tracking software that works by triangulating the location of the drone transmissions. For example, you would install antennas, directional antennas around your site. And then when there's a transmission, it picks it up and it tries to triangulate the location of the pilot and triangulate the location of the drone. There are, of course, also proprietary solutions like the DJI. I'm blanking on the name of it, but the DJI system that people were talking about being used in Ukraine. I mean, I don't have any specific thoughts about it. If it's based on triangulation of a signal, it's very easy to track. It's very easy to do, but the precision is low. If it's proprietary, then it only works with one type of drone. Oh. ProSci is upset I don't notice normal chat. Oh, man. That's a shame. I notice it every now and then. Yeah, no, I've just spent a half hour of the stream doing other things, and I want to make sure I get my super chats out of the way. If you're mad, you can always leave a super chat, or you can wait till I get back to the normal chat. Okay. That's the one message I noticed, right? It's always fun when people talk about me in the third person, like I'm not here. You know, he does he? It's like, I'm right here. Anyway. Daniel Harmon asks, does a beck for a GoPro cause interference? It shouldn't. I mean, a beck can be noisy. It can be noisy and cause interference, but it really shouldn't. Anyway. Okay, continuing with the super chats. Creative Solutions Digital Marketing, thank you for 25 HRK. What Crossfire radio would you recommend for my new HD Nazgul? Price is a concern. Creative Solutions, if you're looking at Crossfire, the TPS Tango 2 Pro, Tango 2 is mighty compelling. What is his price on that right now? It's mighty compelling. So it's selling right now for $160. $160 is cheaper than a TX16S. Well, certainly a TX16S Max. I think even the base Hall effect TX16S is up to $180. And it doesn't come with a Crossfire module. This is going to come with a Crossfire module. It is a reasonably well-built radio. It's hard to argue against this unless you just hate a gamepad-style radio. The biggest complaint with the Tango 2 is the gimbals. The way they built the gimbals means that they sometimes don't recenter accurately. They can sometimes be temperature sensitive. If they get cold, then you have to recalibrate them. Stingy got so annoyed with the gimbals on this radio, and the Mambo has the same problem, that he actually is moving away from the radio. So, I mean, I don't say that to say that you would have that same feeling, just to say that there are people who feel that that's a deal breaker issue, but many, many people fly this radio and feel that it's a great radio. Now, if price wasn't an issue, you could look at something like the Radiomaster TX16S and a Crossfire module, but you're going to be closer to the $250 range. Phantom FPV, good to see you there, friend. Oh, the chat is telling me that this Restube thing can be set up to be automatic. Here we go. This is it then. This is the winner. This is an automatic deployment CO2-based drone recovery device. I mean, your drone's still going to get wet, but you will get it back. There we go. Thank you, chat. You guys are rocking. You guys are rock stars. There's another product called Get Her Back. Oh, there we go. See? I knew if I just mentioned it on Livestream and said I've had trouble with this, the Livestream would just solve the problem for me. Get Her Back. Depth Activated Drone Recovery System. There's the second one. All right. That's 2. Bambi, thank you for a £5 super chat. If you were to pick an analog goggle for racing today, money no object. Orca. Why am I rolling my eyes? Because when new Orca goggle came out, I was annoyed. I still am annoyed that it wasn't the goggle I was wishing it was. It didn't have digital HD built in. I kind of hoped that would be in there. The screen got smaller. I don't like that. I like the bigger screen on the Orca V1. But if price is no object, it's still, and I say this in my review of it, I'm not like changing my tune here. If price is no object, it's still a GD good goggle. And probably the best analog goggle. The price no object. The SkyZone Skyo 4X is a better buy because it's so much less expensive. It's only $500. But price no object, the Orca is the one I would get. The Long Ranger, thank you for a $5 super chat. I have a Naminmo Diversity RX for Express LRS. It came with dipoles. Swapped them out for the Beta FPV, and I fail-safed 100 feet out. Why did this happen? So I can't tell you why you fail-safed, right? There's too many variables. I don't think swapping out the antennas should have done that. Because, I mean, the antennas, all of the antennas, you shouldn't fail safe 100 feet out. Even like I would think you could probably fly with no antenna at all 100 feet out and not fail safe. I don't know for sure, but Certainly the antennas, I mean, you told me you swapped the antennas, certainly could be that what did it, but I don't think so. Could be a bad receiver. The first thing I would do is I would check here's the first thing I would do. I got you. Let's see if I can find my own video. I got a video here. Failsafe at 50 feet. Why? Where I go through troubleshooting. Shush. I go through troubleshooting. The Long Ranger. I'm going to give you a link to this video. I go through the process of troubleshooting my own short-range failsafe. And that's what I would walk you through. All right? That's what I would walk you through. Creative Solutions, Digital Marketing. Thank you for another 10 HRK. Nate Harms FPV, thanks for 5 Canadian dollars. Always nice watching your streams. And now we're caught up on the super chats. And we can take some questions from the regular chat. You say you put the original antennas back on and they're fine. So obviously the beta FPV antennas had a problem. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? But I mean, there's no reason. The antennas are not specific to that receiver. Any 2-point, you can put a ghost antenna on there. It just needs to be a well-made antenna. Jan Engelen. That's an interesting question. Jan asks, is SMA inverted or SMA normal? I think you're asking about RP SMA versus SMA. There's no difference in RF performance. I personally prefer RP SMA, and I'll tell you why. Let's get a picture up on screen. So here we go. This is the picture I like to use. So here are SMA and RP SMA connectors. And these two down here on bottom are the ones that are going to be on your device, your VTX, your goggle, etc. The reason I like RP SMA to be on the goggle, etc., and it often isn't, for the record, but the reason I like it is that if you have SMA on your goggle, then you can accidentally plug in an RP SMA antenna and you'll get terrible range because do you see that there's no pin connecting them? You'll get terrible performance, but you won't know why. But if you have RP SMA on your goggle, on your VTX, on your device, you cannot plug an SMA antenna in because the two pins will bonk and they won't screw in. So with SMA on your device, you can plug in the wrong antenna, but with RP SMA you cannot. And that's why I think devices should have RP SMA, not SMA. Now, the other argument that people make is that what wears out in a connector is this little receptacle here, and that you would rather wear out the receptacle on an antenna than wear out the receptacle on a VTX, which is also valid. So I think RP SMA is better. Inoc wants to know. Are there any 12S 80 amp or better 4-in-1 ESCs? No. Maybe. Why? You're running like, I don't know about you, but by the time I'm buying a 12S 80 amp ESC, let's just get some you know, perspective here. Does APD sell one? They're actually probably the most economical. 12S. Here's a 12S 120 amp ESC from APD. It's $100. Let's do a 12S ESC APD. That's 120 amp. I think they have a lower. Here's a. Can we just do search for APD? Okay, here we go. Here's that. Oh, that's 8S. They have an 8S 80 amp for $49 or a 12S 120 amp for $100. By the time you're buying 12S ESCs, I don't want a 4-in-1, man. Because that would be like a $400 board, and if I blow one FET, I'm out $400. I want individual ESCs so that if I blow one, I can replace only the one that I blew. It's too expensive to screw around, to be honest with you. That's my personal take. 661 FPV agrees with me. I don't know the answer. The thing is, I'm skeptical because like a 4-in-1 ESC is usually a 30mm form factor, right? And a 30mm, look at the size of these FETs. They're freaking enormous. To be able to deal with 12S high amps, I just don't know if you could even fit all that stuff on there. Let's try this. Can we even find any 12S 4-in-1 ESC? Here's one. Mad Motor makes one. 60 amp, here's a 12S. So Mad Motor has a 50 amp 12S ESC. For $149. You wanted 8 amps or better. And look, see they're using all metal FETs. There's not a lot. There's not a lot of them. Yeah, there's not a lot of them. I really think you want individual ESCs. I mean, you probably know why you want a 4-in-1, but I'm just going to tell you that I would advise against it. Frankly, if you showed me a 12S 80 amp 4-in-1, I would be in a 30mm form factor. I would be suspicious of that 80 amp rating. I mean, if you show me one and you say it's legit, maybe it's legit, but I'd be suspicious. Thank you, Nate Harms FPV, for $5 Canadian. I think I got you, but I just want to make sure. Nate Harms says, always nice watching your streams. Wes Magyar, thank you for a $10 super chat. What's better? Buying an actual analog goggle and module or buying an adapter for my DJI goggles? I wear glasses and have bad astigmatism. So the advantage of buying an adapter for your DJI goggles like the BDI Digidapter, the advantage is that you only have one set of goggles, which is certainly nice. The disadvantage is that the DJI FPV goggles are only adequate as analog FPV goggles. There's two main disadvantages to the DJI FPV goggles for analog. One is that there is a tiny amount of latency on the AV input. It used to be more, and in firmware they seem to have reduced it a little. The latency, I think, is around 1 frame or around 16 milliseconds. So if you are particularly concerned about latency, using the AV input of the DJI goggles will give you a little bit of additional latency. Some people might not like that, but most people are going to be okay with it. The other disadvantage is that in some cases, the DJI goggles will go to black screen or DJI logo instead of staying on static. And an analog goggle should always stay on static. And so you could, if you get any bit of video through, then you get to see it. I don't know the details enough to say them confidently, but it has something to do, I think, with whether you're using an NTSC or a PAL camera, that like NTSC will stay on static, but PAL will go to black screen, or vice versa. I don't think it's everything, but sometimes they will go to black screen. And if you were going to be flying at the edge of range, you would want to research that before you committed to it. Now, if you're okay with those things, then using them as an analog, it's nice to have just one set of goggles. But if you're not okay with those things, it's also nice to have a dedicated set of analog goggles. I love flying analog with my Sky Zones, my Fat Sharks, and my Orcas. They're smaller, they're lighter, they're more comfortable than the DJI goggles. The DJI goggles are, like, objectively bigger, heavier, and fit worse than analog goggles. For me, for sure, and I think for a lot of people. And we put up with that. We don't care. That's like saying, my God, the seats in my Ferrari sure aren't as comfortable as they could be. Like, shut up, you're driving a Ferrari. It'll be all right. I think you're going to be okay. And so you put the DJI goggles on your face and you're like, it's kind of, you don't even think about it most of the time. But if you're flying analog, like the one thing that makes it worth the bad fitment is the good range and image quality. And now you're flying analog and you're like, why am I doing this? So if you have the budget and if you have the space in your kit to have a second dedicated set of analog goggles, which most people don't, but if you're one of the people who does, then yeah, I would say go for it. Short circuits. You lost me at Racer Star. Racer Star 12S 100 amp 4-in-1. Don't believe anything about Racer Star's specs. They're extremely. No. If you have bad astigmatism, you can get corrective lenses both for DJI and dedicated goggles. The advantage of the DJI goggles, if you have glasses, is that the DJI goggles will fit over your glasses, and that may work well for you. Well, some glasses they will. Good question, Wes. We got a question in the Discord from Jumpstart FPV. I don't think I've showed a question from the Discord yet today. Jumpstart FPV says, I've got an Acon F7 flight controller. It doesn't show battery voltage. It shows 0 in the OSD. All right, well, the first thing we want to check, Jumpstart, and this is going to be a total waste of time, but we should check it anyway. Some flight controllers don't measure battery voltage from the same pin that they get power from. Like the Brain FPV Radix V2 is an example of this. It's extremely rare, but let's just look at the Acon F7 V2. It's the 30 millimeter one, so let's double check that. We're looking at the right one. Here's the pinout diagram. This is the 30 millimeter. Here we go. And what I'm looking for is, where does it get power from? So it gets power here, BAT plus, from the ESC, as you would expect. And the other thing I'm going to look for is there any separate VBAT sensing wire or pad? And there isn't going to be one, but we're going to look anyway. Don't see anything here, so it stands out. Nothing over here. Nothing over here. We'll look over here to see if there's anything. No? Okay, let's look on the... is there an underside? And we look for any jumpers or any other weird things that might create a problem. BAT plus solder pad here. That's fine. That's the same as the ESC though. So it doesn't look like there is any other way that VBAT would get sent to the board. Pause for a second. Why would you do that? Why would you, if you're giving the flight controller VBAT for power, why would you then have a separate VBAT sense position? The main reason you do that would be if you, let's say that you've got a flight controller that's powered from 5 volts. Nobody makes these anymore, mostly. Back in the old days, though, flight controllers were typically powered from a 5-volt regulator that was installed elsewhere on the quad, usually either a separate PDB or sometimes the ESC. So the flight controller would not have a voltage regulator on board, and you would not feed VBAT into the flight controller, at which point, how does the flight controller know what VBAT is? You have a separate wire that senses VBAT, and that's why you would do it that way. These days, flight controllers almost always are powered from VBAT, and they almost always then just sense VBAT through that same pin. And that's what's going on with your ACON. So then, what's going on? Why do you have 0 volts when you set onboard ADC as your voltage sensor? Probably your flight controller is damaged. However, not always. Sometimes you're like, well, but it's brand new or whatever. I mean, damage to the voltage sense circuit could cause this. The other thing to look at is, one second. If we go to the CLI tab and type, watch out, Bardwell's going in the CLI tab. Get your welding goggles on, everybody. There we go. If we type resource and look at our resource list, what I want to look for is that all? Oh, here we go. Resource ADC BAT1. This resource is telling the flight controller which pin on the processor the ADC resource, the voltage sense circuit, is connected to. If you were to screw this up, it would stop working. You wouldn't get voltage sense anymore. So it's possible that you flashed the wrong target or you screwed up the resources somehow, and that's making it not work. Do this. Go to the CLI, type defaults. This will completely wipe the configuration of the flight controller. See if it starts working. Number 2, go to the CLI. Oh, I've done it now. Go to the CLI, type version, and look for the board name. And what's the right target for this one? We may have a little trouble finding it. Well, here, is ACON going to tell us? ACON F7 is the target. So look and see if your target is ACON F7. If you flash the wrong target, that would cause that problem. Now, Bad for Life says check the pins in the plugs. Can't be, because the board is powering up. The board is powering up, so we know VBAT is inbound. Oh, man, it's my lucky day. Mads Tech has a question. Or maybe it's Bacon Ninja. Oh, no, Bacon Ninja's quoting. Mads Tech has a question in the Discord. So lucky to be able to help Mads Tech out with something for once instead of the other way around. Can you set throttle limit on a switch? I don't want to do it in the RC controller. Let's go back to Betaflight. In Betaflight, everything that is in a rate profile can be put on a switch. You can switch rate profiles by using in-flight adjustments, and basically you can use an aux channel to switch your rate profile. So if we go to the CLI and we type dump, actually technically we should type dump all. When we type dump, it only dumps the current rate profile. Let's dump all the rate profiles. So we type dump all. And then we sit here for a minute. Okay, so here, notice that this flight controller has 5, or 6 actually, rate profiles. 0 through 5 are the numbers. Everything in these rate profiles, Ian, you can change with an aux switch. Okay? So what Ian wants to change is, he wants to change the throttle limit on a switch. Yep. There you go. Set throttle limit type, set throttle limit percent. So Ian, what you would do At this point, he already knows. He's figured it out by now. He's a smart guy. But for everybody who's following along, if we go in the PID tuning tab, we go to rate profile settings. Here is rate profile number 1. We would go to rate profile number 2, and we would set throttle limit type scale and throttle limit 80% or whatever we want it to be, and we would save. And then we go back to rate profile number 1. You see it's at 100%. Actually, what we would really do first is I would say copy rate profile, and I would copy from 1 to 2 so that my actual rates don't change. The only thing I would want to change would be the throttle limit. Now, what you can't put on a switch is the PID profile. This can only be changed via stick commands, not via aux. But since the setting you want to change is in the rate profile, Ian, you can change it on a switch. Sweet. Blackbug Digital, thank you for your super chat. I sometimes get DJI blackout on my Vistas. Usually happens when I do a self flyby. What could be the reason? If you're going, usually black screen with DJI logo, that's tough. The first thing I would ask is, do you have on-screen display still? If your OSD keeps working but you get black screen, that means your camera has come disconnected. And you got to reseat and check the camera wire between the Vista and the camera. If you get full signal loss, it's usually a power issue because the Vista is usually not damaged. They're very difficult to damage. So what I would do, I don't know about bad capacitors. I mean, I'm a little skeptical of that. But what I would do if you're using Vista and if you're using 6S or less, I would wire the Vista directly to your ESC power pads instead of like a regulator on the flight controller so that the Vista, if you've got a bad regulator or something, it's not affecting anything. Mike Crabtree, thank you for a $20 super chat. I'll apply that to the balance on that quad you're buying. Mike's buying a quad from me. iCloudFly here, FPV. Thank you for a $10 super chat. One of my Vistas gets a bad signal about 200 feet away and starts to break up. I've replaced the antenna. Is there anything else I can do before replacing the Vista? iCloudFly here. The number one thing I would say to check is make sure it is at max power. If it somehow has been like registered in the wrong region or it's not unlocking and it's in thermal protection, those are things that could cause that. Bad hardware is extremely unlikely, but not impossible. I want to show you this video of mine. I'm not going to show it to you literally, but DJI FPV very short range. Your MSP connection might be why is very relevant to this issue. iCloudFly here. I could fly here. Is it cloud? No, I could. Let me give you that video, and it shows how to troubleshoot that. Mupshot has a question in the Discord. Thank you so much for being a patron, Mupshot. If you are enjoying the content, if you get a lot of value out of my channel, one way to thank me is to become a patron. Patreon is a website where you can subscribe to your favorite creators, including me. My Patreon starts at $2 a month. You can obviously go to a higher tier if you want. The main benefit you get is access to my Discord server, where you can hang out with the other patrons, chat with them, get help with your quad, etc. And I read your questions during the live stream. There's a link down in the video description to my Patreon page. If today's the day that I earned it, love to have you. And if I haven't earned it yet, keep watching. I'll keep making content, and hopefully someday that day will come. A quad built to run on 2S, 1404, 4500 kV on 10 amp all-in-one. Can I run 3S or 4S without frying it? I think that 10 amp, you didn't tell me what your props were. I could probably guess from your motor and your KV, but I think your 10 amp AIO is marginal. My guess is that's marginal. Like Bob Ruge uses a 7 amp all-in-one for his 1S toothpick. 1S, 3-inch props, something like 10,000 kV, I think. I'm not sure. So I think you're really on the edge with that AIO. And by going to 3S or 4S, you would add 50 or 100% more RPM. So you're going to significantly increase your amp draw. If you were to use a throttle limit, not a throttle limit, but a motor output limit. Throttle limit only limits the stick input, but motor output limits the output. Then you could be okay. But my gut feeling is you're already on the edge. Like, I don't know your all-up weight and I don't know your props. My gut feeling is you're already on the edge with that 10 amp AIO. So I would worry. I wouldn't rush to go to 3S or 4S unless it's a very light build with small props. 661 FPV says, if it's light enough, then definitely 10 amps is okay. Yeah, we really need to know the props. Oh, Mupshot. We really need to know the props and the all-up weight. Mupshot, feel free to share that information. Wes Magyar back with another question. I was eyeballing the Fat Shark Scout analog goggles. Are those a good choice? You could fit some glasses under there, but they're actually fairly small. What I do with the Scout is I take the lens out of the goggles and I take my glasses off and I can kind of see, but my glasses don't fit inside the Scout. So that's up to you if you feel like that's the right way to go. Ton, VTX power on a switch still needs to be done in the CLI. That is correct. Skyzone Cobra X are definitely better than the Scout. The receiver module is way better, and the screen is better. I would take the Skyzone Cobra X over any other analog box goggle, but the price is pretty premium. Mike Crabtree, thank you for another $7. Mike's trying to get help with his Express LRS installed so he can fly today. And I'm helping him, but maybe not as fast as he would prefer. But I'm on a live stream, Mike. Excuse me. Athix has a question. I'm trying to transfer models from an original X-Lite to an X-Lite Pro. I have Edge TX 2.5 on both, and I'm trying to transfer models by SD card. The X-Lite Pro gives me a compatibility error. Yeah, so Athix, you can't transfer models between two different model of radio just by copying the SD card. That won't work. What you need to do is get Edge TX Companion, the Edge TX Companion app, and it can convert the models for you. Do I have that on my desktop? I think I should. I don't have Edge TX Companion? That seems really unlikely. Well, I have OpenTX Companion. Maybe that'll do. What you're going to do is in Settings, Radio Profiles, you're going to create a radio profile for your original Edge TX, or your original X-Lite, and your new X-Lite. And in the radio profile, you're going to go Settings, And you're going to make sure that the radio type is set correctly. So one of them is going to be FrSky Tyrannus X-Lite, and the other is probably going to be X-Lite S/Pro. I'm guessing that's what you've got. And then you're going to open the X-Lite. So you're going to have radio profiles set to your X-Lite, and you're going to read models and... You can't see what I'm doing. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry about that. So with the X-Lite profile selected, you're going to read models and settings. And then you're going to switch to the X-Lite Pro profile, and it's going to say, do you want to convert these models? And then you're going to write models and settings, and that's how you do it. Wes Magyar, I do have a review of the Cobra X. If you're ever not sure, just do a Google search with my name. It's very simple. Yeah, bingo. Thank you, TS13FPV, for linking to that. Appreciate it. Lucimi FPV wants to know. Lewis Me FPV. Lewis. There we go. What analog receiver is better for long range, rapid fire or TBS Fusion? In my experience, they are almost identical in RF performance. So pick the one that fits your goggles the best. If you're using Crossfire, there are some integration options between Crossfire and Fusion that make sense. If you're using Ghost, there are some integration options between Rapid Fire and Ghost that make sense. But in terms of pure RF performance, they are very, very close, and I don't think there's a winner between them. Mike Speedy FPV, thanks for £2. No question, just £2. Thank you for your donation. Wes says, you have so many videos. I've been going through your backlog for the past month. Yeah, I do. It's true. Andre S. wants to know the best way to use black box data and add it to my DJI Osmo Action to use GyroFlow. Andre, you don't have to embed the gyro data into the video file with GyroFlow. With GyroFlow, you can open a separate CSV file or black box file and sync it up with the video. So I think what you need to do is take a look at Paul Nurkola's tutorial. I don't know for a fact that he shows how to import external data, but his GyroFlow tutorial is the best out there today, in my opinion. 661 FPV, the built-in Wi-Fi on Fusion is the feature I was talking about when I said if you have Crossfire, there's some features that will work. 661 FPV also points out that Fusion can use the Express LRS backpack function. I didn't actually know that. Otis, you mad, bro? You mad? You mad? Otis has been asking, those 3 quads on your bench are set up very nicely. Any reason? No, there's no reason. They were on my bench. I put them there so they look nice. They look nice for the stream. That's all that's going on. That's why I was ignoring your question, because it's just a non-answer that isn't really contribute anything to the stream. But then Otis says, I would have paid a few bucks for a response, but I'm leaving soon. You know what, Otis? If you wanted a response, if you wanted me to definitely stop ignoring your question, you could have paid a few bucks and put your message in a super chat. And then I would have read it and answered it, and I wouldn't have been snarky about it. So you're like threatening, I was going to leave. I would have paid a few bucks if you had answered my question. Then why didn't you pay a few bucks? And I would have answered your question. You've been asking that question for like 20 minutes. 20 minutes ago, you could have done a $2 super chat, asked the question, and then I would have answered it. Just saying. That's the answer, though. Now you got your answer for free, but you got it with a little bit of snark. Have a good day. Oh, it's the bourbon talking. That's all. It's the bourbon talking. No hard feelings, Otis. Don't take that the wrong way. It's always funny to me. You know what? I would have donated if you had only respected me enough to answer my question. Well, I would have answered your question if you had donated. So, you know. I also sometimes answer a ton of questions that aren't super chats. That's fine. But, like, if you've been asking the same question, and it's not just you, Otis. If you've been asking the same question for 20 minutes and I'm not answering it, and then you're like, well, not like I'm going to donate to this guy. Well, if you had donated, I would have answered it. It's fine that you're curious about the quads on my bench. I just know the answer is completely uninteresting, and so I wasn't wasting everybody's time giving it. Okay. Anyway. That's the answer, though. No hard feelings, Otis. Don't get your feelings hurt. My feelings aren't hurt. We're just having a good time here. Mr. Syncopat says, more rants! Yeah, I don't like to rant against my own commenters, though. It ends badly for everybody. Jack Print, thank you for your super chat. Is it normal to have a fear of flying as a newbie? I've got all the gear, but I'm afraid to go out with it. Yeah, it's normal. Practice in the simulator until you feel relative. If you don't feel moderately confident in the simulator, then you're just going to crash and break your quad if you fly in real life. And that's fine. Do that. If that's what you want to do, more power to you. It's thrilling to fly a real quad. Flying in the simulator is boring and dumb. I get it. But, like, for real, you're just going to crash and break it. So, you know, eat your vegetables, kids. The right way to do it, the smart way to do it, the rational way to do it is to practice in the simulator until you can at least, like, take off and, like, not just like, reset. If that's your experience in the simulator, that is exactly what's going to happen when you go to fly in real life, but faster and worse and more expensive. But if you can fly in the simulator and you're like, okay, if that's you in the simulator, go for it. Fly in real life. And it'll be terrifying and thrilling, and, you know, that's good. Because eventually it'll be boring. I remember the first time I did flips and rolls. I flew 200 feet in the air. And I was like, okay, here I go. I'm going to turn upside down now. Ah! It was the biggest. I couldn't believe it. Now I'm like, I'm just going to go fly. I kind of miss those days when it was like just flying at all was the most thrilling thing you could possibly be doing. You know? So yeah, go for it. Enjoy those times. Mr. Syncopad. My friends say I'm dumb. Ooh, some friends. My friends say I'm dumb for buying 2550 kV and using 6S with a 75% motor limit. What do you say? Yeah, I also don't know why you would do that on purpose. Okay, let me back up. Aaron Ciotti, a person who I respect greatly, doesn't mean he's always right, but I do respect his opinion. He made an argument once that you should buy 2400 kV motors and fly them on 6S with a motor limit. And the advantage is that if you are in a situation where you need a little more pop for some reason, you can always dial up the motor limit and go from 65% to 70 or 80% and get just a little more punch out of those motors at the expense of battery life. But you have the choice. Whereas if you're flying 1800 kV or 1900 kV motors on 6S, there's nowhere to go from there. He made the argument. That's completely valid. I mean, I don't necessarily... I feel weird. I think there's disadvantages to running high kV motors with a motor limit. And I think it increases the likelihood of a desync. It increases the stress on the ESC because the motor has more torque demand, the motor pulls more current to make the same amount of torque. So I don't think that it's without consequences, but it's not like crazy that you would do it. Personally, I don't think it's compelling. If you like doing it, why are you doing it? That's the big question. Why are you doing it, Mr. Syncpad? What's your motivation? Oh, it's Ciotti's recommendation. Okay. Well, the thing is, if you never dial them up, I mean, the whole point of Ciotti's argument is that sometimes you could dial that up or down and have that extra little overhead that you could, if you never dial them up, though, you may as well just be buying 1900 kV or whatever. I've heard there's a YouTuber out there, and I'm blanking on his name. I apologize to him for blanking. But there's a YouTuber out there who makes an argument that it actually is less likely to fry your ESC if you do that. And I've argued against it. And since I don't remember the technical details of his argument, I won't dive into the technical details of my counter argument. I don't want to have a one-sided fight. If anybody remembers who that is, post it in the chat, and I will make a link to his video. But I personally don't agree with that. Let's see here. Would you Athix? Are you crazy? You crazy? Are you crazy? You crazy, girl? Would you combine 50 ohm and 75 ohm coax? No. I don't know any. I mean, maybe a ham out there is going to tell me there's a reason to do that. No. I can't imagine a reason to combine 50 ohm and 75 ohm coax. I've never heard of that. I have heard of doing things to impedance match, where you intentionally add additional length of wire, or you add capacitors and inductors to get impedance matching and tuning. Sandra DeBronner, are you out there? Is there ever a reason to mix 50 ohm and 75 ohm coax? I don't think so. But if Sandra DeBronner tells me otherwise, I don't know, 661 FPV, parallel, series, like I can't imagine a reason why you would ever have an RF system tuned to 75 ohms or 50 ohms and then want to put the wrong impedance coax. It seems like that would only create problems. The whole point of RF systems is that you want matching impedance. Don't you? I mean, there's so much work put into matching the impedance of an RF system. I don't think Sandra DeBronner's out there to tell me if I'm right or wrong. Coelho FPV. Thank you so much for a $5 super chat. Coelho FPV. Is there any merit to adding a thin layer of damping grease on the Veyron 3.5 Cinewhoop? Coelho, let me address that question generically first. Damping grease does have a beneficial effect on frames vibration performance. That's a fact. It's been demonstrated, and it passes theoretical muster, and it's been demonstrated experimentally to make a difference by Chris Rosser and Bob Ruge. So, you know, if you like, well, Bob Ruge, what does he know? Like, because he's a dentist, what does he know? Some people would say he doesn't have the same sort of scientific background and don't always believe what he says. But if Chris Rosser and Bob Ruge agree on something, you could take that shit to the bank, right? Okay, that's what I'm getting at. But many people feel that the hassle of putting the grease on the frame isn't worth the improved performance, and that may also be true. So let's look at the Veyron 3.5 specifically. Is there something about this frame specifically that makes it relevant? It's got 2 plates. Is that 2 separate plates? I mean, I can't get a... No, of course. Can I enlarge? There we go. It looks like it has 2 frame plates side by side, which is kind of weird. One on top of the other. It looks cool. I don't... That's a good question. Like, in this case, you don't really... I'm not sure you have, like, a joint, per se. Both of the plates are just overlapping each other. I would have to ask Chris Rosser. I would hesitate to weigh in on this. But I'm still going to weigh in, because what the hell. I'm not convinced there would be much advantage, because the attachment points of the motors are identical on both of these plates. So it's not like we have a motor attached to an arm and then an arm attached to a main plate. And at that joint, there's a benefit to adding some damping grease to limit the vibrations that are transmitted from the arm to the main plate. In this case, both of these 2 plates are experiencing the exact same vibration. And so adding damping grease between them, I think it still could affect the resonant characteristics of the plate as a whole. So I think it's, if I had to guess, I would say I'm like 52% on the side of it would have a benefit. I'm like 99% on the side of it wouldn't make things worse. But I'm not actually super confident whether it would maybe not make things better, but not make them any worse either. I don't think there would be as much advantage to adding damping grease on this frame compared to a frame that wasn't a sort of a one-piece carbon fiber as opposed to detachable arms. I don't think it would hurt. Aerobrat says, I used damping grease on my JB QAVS. Both me and Chris Rosser agreed the vibration signatures were significantly better. It flew amazing. I lost it in a pond on the next flight. Ouch. I've got a JB QAVS build. It's driving me effing crazy. I don't know what's up with this quad. It has noise problems. I put a new flight controller in it. The motors are fine. The frame has no visible damage. And I'm down to the frame or the ESC. Because it seems like no matter what I do, this thing has a problem. And I'm like, I should not have to rebuild this whole effing quad. But I hate taking it out to fly and it has some problem. That's all, just whining. Cygnus, thank you for a $10 super chat. Best night vision or IR camera. Looking to start a DIY night vision goggle project. Cygnus, the best thing to do is to get a Starlight camera like the Foxeer Cat. The Runcam Night Eagle, although I think the Night Eagle isn't made anymore. Get a Starlight camera like that, and then work from there. You're not going to get true night vision, but if you have an infrared LED or something, you can get pretty good results. Ernesto Linares, good question. Going from RC3 to RC5, do I need to do full chip or race? Ernesto, if you're going from a Betaflight RC3 to RC5, what you should do is go to the Presets tab, save your configuration from the Presets tab, flash RC5, and then reload the configuration. Everything will be fine. But never trust that your configuration will be preserved across a firmware update, always manually save the configuration first. Jay says, I had your frame and a kid had the same problem. The arm was delaminating. He found it by twisting them. Valid? I mean, that's I actually hadn't thought of that. Let's see if that's the problem. I've been over this. Oh, well, I'm going to take my gosh darn tape off. But there you go. Hang on. This is annoying. Hold on a second. I'm curious enough about that to like dive in on the live stream and try to check this out. You can thank Phantom FPV for sending me this tool. He sent it to me as a Christmas present. I was like, what? He's a good dude. Uh-oh. Okay, hang on. You can see I wasn't lying about that. This is the quad that got stuck in the intro video. Okay. Next, the tape comes off. Need some burlesque music. Ba-da-bow, ba-da-da-bow. Is it a delaminated? Oh, shit. I guess I don't need to do that. Let's twist it. Ooh. I can't see. Hang on. One arm. Do we have a delaminated arm? That one's solid. That's not delaminating. Do 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 ba da boom da boom da da. Ooh, show me your arms, ma'am. Okay, number 2 arm. No, that's rock solid. Solid. Do 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 down. Da da. I mean, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to replace the ESC and the frame at the same time. Even though there is nothing wrong with the frame. No, that's solid. 4 out of 4. Here we go. Just because I'm so annoyed at not being able to fly this quad. I'm like, oh, let's pid tune. Let's do a pid tuning video today. You son of a bitch! 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 Ah! Yes! Yeah, I found it! Look, the arm is cracked! Yeah! It was hidden under the tape. Driving me crazy. It's been driving me crazy. And every time I was like, I guess I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with my gyro and my flight controller. Who made that chat? Who made that chat? Who was it who said that? You win a prize. Who was that? I don't want to go back and look. Let me search in the. It's not in the history. Who was it who made that original suggestion? I'm trying to find it. It was Jay. Jay. I don't know how I'm going to validate that it's you. Jay, email me. JoshuaBardwell@gmail.com. I want to send you a challenge coin as a thank you. You got it. You nailed it. I'm gonna, please don't, if you're not Jay, please don't be like, hey, I'm Jay. I'm going to try to find a way to validate your account before I send it to you, but I appreciate that, Jay. That was a good, you saved my ass on that one. It's just one of those things where you're looking everywhere except where the problem is. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it was covered up in tape. But I just was so convinced that it was a problem with my flight controller or my gyro. And I looked at the frame up and down, and I just was not thinking about the arm delaminating. It was just a blind spot for me. And Jay was the one who saved me. So good on you, Jay. Well, this has been annoying me so much, because it's what is the problem? It's my signature frame. It's my quad. It's the one I love to fly. And it's, so annoying. Jay, just email me, JoshuaBardwell@gmail.com. All right. Okay. Yeah, I've made that suggestion to other people. I know that. Just, yep. Awesome. That's so satisfying. That's it. That's it. It was a hairline crack at the very top of the arm. And then as I began to bend it, I was like, oh, yeah. Okay, let's move on. Thank you so much. That was super satisfying. That was the last arm, too. I was like, nah, that's not going to be it. Dingles asks, JB, what do you think about using those small Express LRS receivers with cube antennas on a 5-inch racing quad? Will the LQ be inconsistent with a small antenna inside? Dingles, what you're going to find is that LQ is good right up until it's not, and then it falls off. So you will get less range with an Express LRS EP2 receiver with the ceramic antenna. But as long as you are close enough, your LQ will be fine. Okay? The point where LQ begins to fall off is going to be closer than if you had an external antenna. What I would say, Dingles, is if you're using the EP2 receiver, then watch your LQ. And if your LQ is dropping to 95 or 90 or lower than about 90, I would say, then either increase the output power of your radio if it's possible, or lower your update rate. So if you're at 250 hertz and you're seeing LQ of 85 or 80, go down from 250 to 100 hertz, and your LQ will come back up again. Why do we call them ceramic antennas if they aren't made of ceramic? Asks Ernst. That's just what they're called. I assume they're made of ceramic with embedded copper. That's what I assume. Death Dazine asks, you ever going to review the 533 footy? I don't know. Okay, can I start by saying I'm a huge fan of Evan Turner. Okay? Support him and his business in every way I can. It just so happens I'm wearing a 533 shirt on stream. He's a good dude. He deserves success. I like his product. He makes good products. So he's the whole package. He's smart. He's a good person. He makes good products. Okay, but the 533 footy, I think it's not for me. And that doesn't mean I wouldn't review it. I review products that I don't, It's not a review of a product is not about whether I personally like or dislike it, although that does factor into the review. A review of a product is about whether it provides value to you, the viewer, in helping you make a buying decision. But there's too many products out there to review them all. So my personal interest in the product does factor in. There are some products that are so relevant, like the HD0 1 watt VTX, which, by the way, is at like 80,000 views, my review of it. They're so relevant that no matter how I feel about it, I'm going to review them. The Orca FPV-1 Pilot goggles is another example. There are other products that I personally think are cool and that I think you're going to think are cool, and so I'm going to do a review of them just because I want to play with them and I want to show them to you. And the footy is somewhere in the middle, where like I don't think it's such a groundbreaking product that I must review it because you guys need my perspective on it. Because my perspective is so effing valuable that like nothing is relevant in FPV till I weigh in clearly. And I'm not like so in love with it personally that I'm dying to play with it and review it. Like it's this weird sort of jack of all trades situation where it's kind of big and a little chunky and weird for a freestyle frame, and it's definitely big and chunky and weird for a racing frame. And the idea, so it looks cool. The people who love it, Blunty really loves it. The people who love it like the fact that it is a single frame for both their freestyle and their racing builds. They have a single set of spares for both. The LEDs are cool. But I don't know. It doesn't like knock my socks off. So I don't know. It's interesting. I just am so confused that Evan Turner decided to make a freestyle frame and why didn't he just make a dedicated? Maybe he was like, oh, there's a ton of freestyle frames out there. Why bother? I don't know. That's how I feel about it, though. If you want a freestyle and racing frame in one, there you go. But I kind of don't get it. And so since I don't get it, I'm hesitant to review it. Because if I go into a product and I don't understand what people like, if I have a product that I personally don't necessarily love, what I try to do is I try to understand what other people love about it so that I can present both sides and help you figure out which side you're on. But I think I kind of get it. The appeal is that it's a single frame for both. And I'm just not sure that's like, I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. Yeah. The location of the GoPro so high above it's not unusual, is it? The placement of normally you just have a top plate there. The GoPro isn't as high up as it looks like it is relative to the prop line. It's just the top deck is confusing, and then it looks like it would be. I don't know. It's weird. It's new. I don't like weird new things most of the time. Maybe I'm wrong, but there you go. That's my thoughts about it. Hey, Sandra DeBronner. What's your opinion? Sandra is here in the chat. He's an expert on RF stuff. Is there ever a reason to mix 75 ohm and 50 ohm coax? He says he wrote it. Oh, he wrote it in the... Here we go. He says, if you have a 50 ohm antenna, 75 ohm cable makes no sense. But if you wanted to build a 4x4 Yagi stack and combine them and have 50 ohm, it would be easy to do with 75 ohm cables at the right length. There you go. I'd love to say I learned something, but I probably won't remember that tomorrow. I'll remember that there's an application. Thank you, Sandra. I really appreciate that. Ghost Branch FPV, thanks for €5. Should we bring back FPV Among Us nights? I miss lying to you. Are you going to test the bones? Ghost Branch FPV, I am not only going to test the bones, I have your bones. Ghost Branch lives in Germany. He can't buy the GoPro bones, but he wanted one. So I told him if he ordered one and sent it to my house, I'd forward it to him. Don't. It's a special offer just for Ghost Branch. I need to get it in the mail now, Ghost Branch. What will now happen, Ghost Branch, is it will now sit in my closet for 2 weeks while I forget that it exists, including mine, which I'm supposed to be reviewing. I'll try not to let that happen, my friend. I don't know about Among Us, Ghost Branch, but I still would like to find a time to get together and play Elden Ring with you if you're still playing it. So. Mr. Bob Daniel wants to know, what would cause this distorted OSD when I arm my quad? Bob, many times it's uncertain what causes that kind of thing. But in this case, I can 100% diagnose your problem. I can 100% diagnose this problem. This exact pattern of distortion is the motor PWM signal getting overlapped with the video signal. And what you're going to see is that as you throttle up, it's going to change. Oh, you're not going to fly, are you? It should change with your motor speed. I don't know if... it doesn't look like it is. That's weird. I'm no longer 100% confident. I'm like 99% confident. Bob, that is almost certainly going to be a motor screw touching a motor wire. That's what I think. That specific pattern of tiny little diagonal dots, in my experience, it's almost always the motor, the PWM signal of the motor from the ESC. That's what that looks like. The fact that it didn't seem to change the pattern when your motor sped up is a little bit counter evidence, but I still would lean that direction. Jared Litwiller, thank you for a $5 super chat. Would a burned out ESC cause one of the motors to start smoking when I arm? Yeah, absolutely. I tried swapping the motor and it burnt too. That's more evidence that your ESC is bad. I'm so sorry that it cost you 2 motors to troubleshoot this, but there you go. People in the chat are talking about using Express LRS with servos. There was recently a video, I think it was by Jai. The Express LRS developer. I apologize if I've misattributed that. Maybe it was by Captain Bry. Well, anyway, there was recently a video that demonstrated that the Express LRS wide switch mode, which has 128 steps of resolution, is certainly sufficient for basically, I mean, you probably could run even your main controls off it. The thing is, how much resolution does like a cheap analog servo even have? And he demonstrated that 128 steps of resolution is probably enough. So you certainly can run secondary controls like flaps or landing gear. Those kind of servos absolutely can run with 128 steps of precision using Express LRS's wide switch mode. That's the argument that's being made. Hey, Ciati's here. Happy birthday, Ciati, my friend. How old are you now, man? What are you up to? Jimmy Nature wants to know, is soft serial a full UART? Can I use GPS on soft serial? Yes, absolutely. The limitation of soft serial is that because it's based on the CPU, on the MCU, technically, on the processor, The timing of soft serial is not as consistent as a hardware UART. So for something that is high speed or very timing specific, like a receiver, you wouldn't want to use soft serial. If you're doing, 2 megabit per second output to an open logger, you wouldn't want to use soft serial. I probably couldn't go that fast. But for low speed things where timing is not incredibly important, GPS, smart audio, telemetry, soft serial is fine. The other thing to keep in mind is that when the processor gets overloaded, it will drop unimportant processes. And I don't know for sure, but it's possible that soft serial is one of the things it'll let slip. And so you might want to either research that further with like a Betaflight dev who knows the answer, or you might want to just be careful to not run like mission critical things where if the CPU got overloaded and it dropped for a cycle or two, like you wouldn't lose your quad. You wouldn't want to run that on soft serial. Ciati is 41 years old. I bet a lot of people are surprised to hear that. $41 old. Fair Rowies, thank you for €5 super chat. Thanks for answering my email about the 5 short, 3 long beeps after arming. For sure. Very glad to help. Dragonwing FPV says GPS rescue will not work reliably with soft serial. Why is that, Dragonwing? I'm surprised to hear that. I mean, if the GPS is, and I'm not doubting you, I just want more information. If the GPS is running at like 9600 baud, like that's not super. I mean, surely the MCU can keep up with that. So what's happening to cause GPS rescue not to work reliably with soft serial? I mean, as long as you have SATs locked, what does it matter? Cool Cat says, Ciati has wonderfully luxurious hair for a man of his advanced years. I wouldn't know anything about that. Did I miss any spots? I shaved today. VChab asks, should I sell my DJI goggles V2 now to get the V3 later? No! Stop with the hype and the worry. Says the guy who on the FPV News just released a leak that maybe the V2 was being discontinued. How can Joshua try to play both sides of the fence like that? Where I release a news story that scares everybody, but then also I'm like, stop with the drama. I don't know. Probably just a bad person. We received that leak like 20 minutes before the show, and we decided that the leak was supposedly a message directly from DJI to a dealer, and the dealer leaked it to us. We felt that the source of the leak was reliable, and we trusted that we were being given accurate information. So we covered the information. At the same time, we did a big discussion about what does this mean. And one of the things we said it could mean is that the V2 is going to be discontinued. But then we talked about other things that it could mean, like just a normal supply shortage. And I think a whole lot of people saw the title and didn't watch the bit and were like, Bardwell says the DJI V2 is being discontinued. When we went in a great effort to not say that. And I don't remember, but I think that we also talked about how, don't freak out and like hoard them, and we don't know, but, maybe. And so now this idea that should you sell we don't know when the V3 is even coming. We don't know whether the V3 is backwards compatible with the V2 air units. It might be. We don't know. There is a leak that said it wouldn't be backwards compatible, but we don't know. So look, if you have the money to buy some Vistas right now, and they're in stock, and you're going to need them anyway, buy them. But, like, don't sell your V2 goggles and then wait how long? 4 months, 6 months, 2 months, 9 months? Don't know. For the V3 goggles, which will have what features? I don't know. No one knows. No, that's too far. That's too far. That's too far. Don't do that. That's dumb. Okay. We are coming to the end of the stream. Aaron Ciotti is streaming today. You streaming today, right, Ciotti? Birthday stream. He's going to post the link. Sorry I didn't give you. I hope you already posted the link, Ciotti. Aaron Ciotti is going to be streaming at 3 p.m. on his channel. He's going to post the link. So I hope that everybody will go over there and say happy birthday to him and be generous with the super chats. And I am going to go, I don't know, probably do Easter things with my family. Wes Magyar, I personally agree with you. My personal bet is that the V3 goggles will not be backwards compatible with the V2 air unit. And I feel like I would, like, you really want to put a value on that, then you bet somebody money and you see what odds you're willing to give. And I'm not going to do that. But I think it's like a 7 out of 10 confidence that the V3 will not be backwards compatible. You could write these down. Write these down. Come back to me later and remind me of this, okay? Somebody bookmark this. I feel like a 7 out of 10 confidence that the V3 goggles will not be backwards compatible with the V2 air unit in Vista. It just feels like a DJI move to me, and there's a leak that says, and the V2 goggles have been rooted. So DJI knows their guts are open. So now they have a motivation to force a generational break and make people give up that hardware. Hold on, Ciati. I know it's 3:01 p.m. I'll get out of your way. I feel like there's like a... Now, bear in mind, 5 out of 10 confidence is like 50-50. Oh, I see. No, it doesn't work like that. When I say 7 out of 10, if 5 out of 10 is it's equally likely and unlikely. And a 4 out of 10 means it's more unlikely than likely. You see where I'm going? So 7 out of 10 means it is slightly likely. Maybe I'd go 8 out of 10 then. I think it's more likely than not. 7 or 8. Will there be a V3 air unit and Vista? I also think that's fairly likely, that DJI won't just abandon the FPV market. A week ago, I would have said I was maybe 50-50 on that. Why did I say 5 out of 10, 7 out of 10 when I don't just say 50-50? I don't know. It's my problem. But some people have talked to me and said they don't think DJI is going to abandon the FPV market. And so I'm at least like 6 or 7 out of 10. I'm slightly more likely to think they're going to go that way than to disagree. Tone says, why would DJI care about our community? How many goggles would they sell? That's my point, is like, I don't think we're making them a ton of money. But the counter argument that someone made to me was the R&D is done. So it's basically free money for them to keep making the V2 air unit in Vista. The fact that the V2 has been rooted, they could theoretically fix that with a forced firmware update, but I don't know. Anyway, that's my take. Excuse me. Oh my God. Sorry. Excuse me. Let me get out of here. Let Ciati get on with his stream. Thank you so much for being here, folks. I will see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. for the next stream and throughout the week. Happy flying, everybody. Happy Easter. Have a great stream, Ciati.